Hi, fantastic to be in Timisoara. Thanks to Mirella for this great invitation.
Thank you.
Thanks for the invitation and this amazing opportunity, and this is really a nice space to talk about one of my favorite topics, art and science. Although I'm not going to talk about the porous media today, I'll talk about something else. I'll talk about the book I've been making or writing, a scientific book, that is. And I will talk more about my artwork and porous media. By the way, a very inspirational theme, thanks to Axel and myself for the interesting opportunity to work with that and include that in my work. Before I start, a little bit about myself, so you know a bit more about me. My name is Stahl Stenslie, and I'm an artist, curator, and also a researcher. I've been working in the experimental art scene for many years, and I know Christian almost for 30 years. We are also in the same communities in Norway, so know a little bit about the challenges of dealing with art and technologies in the art context. I've been working as a professor for almost 20 years in Norway, Germany and Denmark, but now I head a research lab or a department at a Norwegian state agency called Arts for Young Audiences. My daily job is to bring arts to the next generation, and that I find important and challenging. Today, for something quite different, for the next, I think it's half an hour, I'll try to limit myself, because this work I'm going to present has taken about 6 years to make. So I won't bore you for six hours, which I would love to. But I try to keep it short and limited, also because, of course, I want you to buy this book, the topic of tonight. But usually I talk much more than I'm a bad salesman because I talk too much. But I hope I won't show you all the stuff from this book. A book I've written together with my wonderful colleague Zane Serpina. So we have both committed to this work, researching the future through arts and food. And the first one is called Roadmap to Our Edible Futures, the title, but the cookbook itself, the Anthropocene Cookbook, has this important, subtitle: Recipes and Opportunities for Future Catastrophes. And I hope that resonates with the title. We live in a time of, if not civilization downfall, in a time of crisis. I'm not sure many of you have seen this wonderful movie, Blade Runner. Very inspirational movie, and a very dystopian movie that portrays the future that we thought would lay far away in the future, far away and beyond at least our generation. And of course, then we enter New York this summer, the same skyline as Blade Runner. So in a way, the future is here. That's also why the book starts with a quote from Murillo: "You cannot avoid the catastrophe, you have to surf it." And that's, in a way, the background for the book. We live in a dystopian time, but how do we deal with that as creators, as creative beings? And to quote one of my inspirators, Joseph Beuys, I happened to go to the Art Academy in Düsseldorf, where he taught, and he said, we are all artists, and in that sense, this book is also a call to arms. How do we deal creatively with catastrophes? How do we solve the crisis, perhaps? But how do we deal with it? Now, this is a very current crisis. It's happening right now. The global warming effects has taken place. I'm not a climate warrior in that sense, but the book is about dealing with catastrophes in multiple terms, because this is a known catastrophe. We know the consequences, but I'll talk about more all the black swans, the unknown unknowns. Anyway, so that's a bit about the background of the Anthropocene, the man-made nature, the Anthropocene. The age that's coming after the Holocene well, we still debate if it's an Anthropocene or not. But if you know, the Anthropocene comes from that after the first nuclear bomb. We humans have made a defined crust in the Earth layer. So, and since 1945, you can, in 1,000 years, you can dig back and you will find the Anthropocene, the start of the Anthropocene. And the big question is, of course, how big this layer will be, how thick or how thin. And that's, of course, the looming question underneath. Will we be extinct as a species or not? I won't answer that question right now, but I'll try to guide you through some artistic examples of how artists deal with the future thinking, but also in terms of artistic practice through food. So it might be a very tasty lecture, I hope. But first, to continue with the paradox of writing a cookbook, and to quote Julian Cribb, out there on Amazon, there's about 90,000 cookbooks, and they're all made to make you drool, to want to buy them, to buy the most exquisite foods available. And I'm sure you all have quite a few cookbooks. I have quite a few cookbooks. And that's a paradox in this time of the Anthropocene, because they all urge us to buy more exotic things and drive us further into the non-sustainable atmosphere. And as he says, the cookbook is a recipe for disaster on a planetary scale. So I think that quote, the beauty of cooking is, of course, we share things, we enjoy things, we feed ourselves, and not just the body, but also our minds and social context. So food and cooking is a sustainable practice in itself, but the way we make it is maybe not always there to provide for a better future. So that's basically why we encounter this with another cookbook, right? To fight the cookbook paradox, you write another cookbook. And again, this is, as I said, a bit about survival as well. A guide for a future gone rogue. Because we don't know what the future is going to bring. We know the Blade Runner scenario right now, but we don't know what's going to happen next year or in the year after or in 10 years. We just have some certain prospects. So what I'll deal with is not exact predicting the next years. Our leap into the future is as if the big catastrophe has happened, and to take that sort of survival thing. How do we survive the Anthropocene once it has happened, and once the catastrophe is behind us? And this is back to Timothy Morton and his work on the environmental philosophy. He says the catastrophe has happened. It's an interesting take, a switch on that one. But I'm not dystopian in the sense that I don't believe in the future, because for me the question is, how do we thrive? How do we use our creative means and thoughts and methods in the creative sense to thrive in the future? And that's, of course, the big challenge, and why you should all buy the book, but I'll come back to that. The Anthropocene is also interesting in the sense that it's not just something happening ahead of us, we're also in a time of transition. And that's what they call a liminal time. We're living in a period where things happen, and we are really on a threshold to a new age. And this liminality calls for of course, concern for a future food supply. It calls for, as I mentioned, the question of survival as a species. And the liminality is also exemplified, of course, through your neighbor country, Ukraine, right? What's going to happen next? We don't know. It's a liminal situation. We're on the threshold of a new world order. And also the energy crisis that we had last year is, as a taste of the emerging environmental and food crisis. That will most likely haunt us for years to come, if not forever. So yeah, this time of upheaval also calls for a liminal aesthetics. What were the arts, and what will the arts become? How will we use the arts or live through the arts and behave through the arts? So one of my concerns in this book is to write about liminal aesthetics. I'll come back to this through the examples, how we deal with this unforeseen, how we deal with phenomena we don't know about, this unknowns, as I said, and how do we repurpose art, perhaps, or look at art as a different activity than the purely l'art pour l'art, art for art's sake. So in my work, or in our work in this cookbook, we use different methodologies that we take from other practices, such as discursive design, where the purpose is to promote something that provokes thinking, promotes new ways of seeing, new optics to see the world. Also, critical design is a practice that I see as very inspirational for the liminal aesthetics. That is, how you have an interrogative, experimental, and discursive practice. And why? Well, we need to re-investigate the era of aesthetics, to reorient ourselves in the sense that how do we map out both desirable and undesirable futures. So now that was introduction to the book, or to the overall book. As I said, it took 6 years to write. Writing books are I could do a lecture about writing books, but it's published at MIT Press, and it's also peer-reviewed before publishing, and it takes quite some time to go through all the hurdles. Not to mention all the writing, of course. But this is basically the layout of the book, 9 chapters. I omit the outlook, the final outlook, the chapter 10, which is kind of interesting because it takes a long look at history. So what I'd like to do now, before I overdo my time, is to go through the chapters and talk a bit about some examples. There are more than 60 specific art projects in this book, in addition to other excursions into various projects of making food, tasting food, doing food. But I hope my following examples will give you a little taste of whatever awaits you inside the book. So the first chapter, Cooking for Survival, doesn't have a photo as such, but introduces us to the complicated history with the cookbooks, and also the statement that you won't find any ordinary recipes in this book. I have tasted quite a few of the menus inside here, I can tell you that, but I can't recommend you to make them. So that's the disclaimer. Even though they, as I said, they might seem tasty, they might be challenging and have unintended consequences. And again, why is this no ordinary cookbook for ordinary recipes? Well, because you can't either build a future after step-by-step instructions. So in a way, the book follows the unforeseen that lies ahead of us. Oops, now I'm very much doing. I can't swap here. So there's important. The examples I'll show you are trying to give you familiarity with the unknown, to also prepare you for unknown things to happen. So, chapter 2 is the ecological crisis menu. Now, and how here we go into the crisis that's happening now, and in particular, the first crisis we deal with is the crisis of food waste. How to deal with the 1.3 billion tons of food waste every year. It's quite a massive amount. At least a fifth of all food we make are gone to waste. That could feed lots of people, right? So it just goes to waste, or plowed down back to earth, whatever. Well, artists have in this example, Paul Gauguin, he has proposed to synthetically or use synthetic biology to transform the human digestive system so that we can also eat rotten food. And here I have a wonderful example. And by doing that, we could ingest, an incredible amount of food around us, including everything rotten and spoiled. A fantastic concept, of course, challenging as such. Also taking into account that some of this waste actually has use. It has use as a kind of backup. There's also this other side to the waste menu. If we wouldn't have waste, we would not be able to feed ourselves in times of acute crisis. So some people propose that it's necessary to have this waste. Otherwise, when the going gets tough and the catastrophe really happens, you won't have any surplus at all. Anyway, rotten food could once and sometime be part of our future. But the beautiful, side of synthetic biology is, if we could do as Gins Gabrans proposes, if we could introduce an enzyme in our body that would allow us to break down celluloses, we could eat anything that grows. Trees, plants, books, paper. So even your library could become your next food store. And this is an incredible amount of energy that lies in all the plant-based world around us. So breaking down celluloses would, to give you the final conclusion of the book, solve most of the food crisis we have. That is, if we still have sunlight enough to feed plants. Because what happens, when winter turns into summer, and the world goes blank, and that's happened, which you write in the book, that happened back in around 560 after Christ. You had this amazing volcanic blast in Indonesia that darkened the northern hemisphere. In particular in Scandinavia, our mythology still has this catastrophe in mind, where for three years there was a continuous winter. And these catastrophes, we think, happen rarely, but at any given time, there are more than 30 active volcano outbreaks on Earth. So the dystopian scenario of a gigantic volcano outbreak, that would limit all plant growth for years, even decades, is not too far away. I hope I'm not making you depressed now, am I? Yes. Sorry. I'll just drink something.
For sure, you are not making us hungry.
Well, have you ever tried cellulose? It's kind of chewy. Yeah, well, let's see how I can progress with that one. Yeah, no, I would like to, but yeah. I'll go back to the next project, which is I'm sure you all heard about, how to grow fungi. Growing things at home is, of course, an interesting option. And fungi that grow again on plastics is another an interesting opportunity, especially when we have plastic waste all around us. making up the Anthropocene stratum, or a big part of it. And this Fungimutarium is, of course, a concept and also an experiment of how to grow eatable fungi at home that lives off plastic waste. And again, this is about rethinking the value of man-made trash. As I said, growing edible fungal biomass on plastic. And it turns your non-organic waste into a nutritious meal within a couple of weeks. Snacks at home, guys. This is an interesting thing, and of course the speculative part here is that you're picking waste, will be the future berry and mushroom picking. So you go and pick away waste, not to clean the environment, but to feed your own home station. I think that's kind of beautiful. Still not tasty maybe, but let's go to the next one. When I go to the Pink Chicken project, talking about food of the epoch. Now this is the project by Pink Chicken Project, 2017. They propose us to create or again manipulate chickens to have the color pink. And why? Well, again, to make a mark in the Earth crust. Currently, there's about 26 billion chickens living. And this is one of the Anthropocene animals that is a wonderful example. We have the chickens were originating somewhere in Asia, very few species that we started as humans to take into farming, and now it's one of the super species on Earth that are changed into so many varieties, even so that every country in Europe has a different chicken species that they farm. Fascinating story if you ever want to look into how we adapt species and change species over time. So what happened if we grew all chickens pink? It's actually feasible to have this happening. Well, as I say, in that case, because we eat so many chickens, in a given time, when you dig back 1,000 years from now, you will find this pink layer in the Earth crust. So again, how to mark or make the Earth into a gigantic sculpture by domesticating chickens. Now that also gives me a discussion into the Anthropocene fate of the passenger pigeon. If you haven't heard about those one, that was a naturally occurring massive species, you could say, massive amount of species. That was the pigeon living in North America before we settled there. They were so abundant, there were more than 5 billion passenger pigeons in America. They were so abundant that when the settlers came, they started to catch them in massive amounts. And they even used them, they were so abundant, they said that the sky would darken for days once they flew over. Anyway, they were caught in so massive amounts because they were so abundant that they would even use them for fertilizer. What happened? By 1988, there were 1 pigeon left. So now they went extinct. So, pigeons are interesting in terms of the Anthropocene and how we make species go extinct. But that was not the case here. It's an artistic example of how we humans can color Earth, and you through food mark the Earth in the name of the Anthropocene. The chapter fake food is of course interesting in the speculative term, and 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐡𝐥 tiger penis project is particularly intriguing. What would happen if we could overcome scientifically all the connected to growing meat in the lab? We can now grow meat in the lab, but it takes something that's called bovine serum. Has anyone heard about bovine serum? Well, I guess you've heard about growing hamburgers, for example. By the way, I had a wonderful hamburger in the restaurant today in the hotel. Fantastic. Well, bovine serum is a serum extracted from the blood of an unborn calf. Now, this is a serum you use to grow animal cells, and maybe you know this, in a petri dish. So to grow a hamburger, you would need the bovine serum equivalent of several dead calves. It's a pretty advanced science, pretty interesting, because we can actually grow meat in the petri dish. I might return to that later on. But it's still challenging, and we're still working on getting rid of the bovine, which is ethically, of course, incredibly discursive and debatable. Although it enables us this incredible technology to grow living cells. There's also lots of other challenges that I won't mention here, but that's in the book. But 𝐭𝐴, he develops this lab-grown food that uses the DNA of animals that are believed to have healing powers, such as in Chinese medicine. Therefore, the Chinese penis, right? Tigers are gradually going extinct because they're being used for medicine. What happened if we could grow these, sacred, holy, special animals? That's part of his project. In a way, with the reasoning of that we could actually, contain or use the healing powers while we still, allow the earth or the nature to grow. But the other side of this is, of course, fascinating, because it's not just about the tiger penis, but this technology could also maybe enables us to grow unicorns or mermaids or centaur meat, to grow quite fantastic species. I'll return to that later in the fantastic menu chapter. So that was an example of that, but now a particularly interesting chapter that I hope this will not make you drool, or maybe it should, the human daily chapter, which is, of course, again, a discursive chapter because it concerns me, right? Us as a species. And one of the final taboos dealing with the human as a food source. And we had quite an extensive talk on this in the book. The first project you meet is Teresa Schubert, who met me, who did what I just said. She took muscle cells from her own body and grew them in a petri dish for investigating the potential of a con-specific diet. Con-specific means a diet composed by your kind. I mean, humans eat humans, or in this case, auto-cannibalism, how to eat yourself. Which again, poses kind of interesting ethical question in a possibly healthy way, because a con-specific diet tends to provide you with just the right nutrition your body needs. There's some takes on that if you don't eat yourself, but other stuff. That's described in the book. So it offers a new spin on cannibalism, that is victimless meat. And this is another friend of mine. I haven't eaten this, by the way, but this is also a self-eating project, self-eater, Marko Markovic, who did that in a more brutal way. He got a physician to cut out a bit of his arm and would eat that as a performance. He would also have an arts performance to exemplify how sometimes we especially in the vegan terms, sacrifice ourselves for some higher cause. That he would, in the performance, he would drink his own blood while it flows from his body. Again, brutal things, maybe less food, but more using the body as a food. Interesting takes on the body as such. Maybe my favorite project is this. fantastic project, James Gilbert Family Whiskey. Now, I don't know how many drinks whiskey here, but this I think tastes particularly nice. In his family, you had diabetes, lots of diabetes. So several members have diabetes, so therefore they have too much sugar in the urine. So what he did was to collect so large amount of urine from his family that he was able to use that to distill or make alcohol and distill it into whiskey. So therefore, it's called family whiskey. I think it's a fantastic project, and how to use the diverse resources. And we do have also a large chapter in the book using, of course, human waste products. I will not go there because that might be scatologically too averse for you. But it's interesting to think of, or to have no taboos. I think that's a part of the arts. Back to the liminal aesthetics. One of the advantages of aesthetic thinking is that you can do away with all taboos. You can be transgressive. You can be break borders, experiment, think, act within that sphere of creativity. Now, the human daily is not just drinking and eating. It's also this is a very interesting project by Center for Genomic Gastronomy. What if we make ourselves into food for other species? Now, that might sound kind of absurd, but there are several species living off our bodies. Bed bugs, mosquitoes, etc. But there are also moths, small butterflies, that in certain parts of the world are specialized on drinking tears of other animals, also of humans. So in the Center for Genomic Gastronomy's experiment to flavor our tears, they tried to make their teardrops taste better for the animals to feed of them. Now it's kind of hard to make them drink in an art exhibition, but therefore they made this virtualization where they in the exhibition, when they exhibit this concept, they put these loudspeakers on your eyes and to simulate the fluttering of butterflies' wings. Interesting concept, also interesting notion of what again. What's the taste of my body? What do you taste like? How can you refine that? That could be. Anyway, we go further on. What's my time now? I'm way above my time already. Have I talked too much? Do you still want to buy the book or something? I still have some chapters to go through, but I won't take too much longer. I'll leave some time for questions afterwards. Of course, bug buffets, guys. How many eat bugs here? Many? Who prefer bug eating? Who like bugs here? Anyone liking bugs? Not many, right? And it's again a taboo. We don't like to eat bugs. Although 2 billion people on this planet are estimated to actually eat bugs on a regular interval. So it's quite common, but not in the northern hemisphere. And this novel food has a hard time establishing itself, mainly because it's hard to farm, right? This is a design project, Living Farms, Hive, where they built this grow insects at home project. Stylish, nice cabinet that allows you to grow mealworms, highly in nutrition and good on your pizza or in your bread. And it's a wonderful idea to grow insects because they don't eat much. They grow rapidly and they can be harvested quite easily. So goes the story. Yet we don't kind of grab onto it. Is it just because of the taboo? Maybe we don't like to, they don't look nice all the time. Yet we eat like shrimps and stuff like that. That also look weird. But to overcome the taboo, you have these experiments like this, where you approach the taboo on another level. In this attempt to popularize eating insects, he designed this exclusive picnic tableware set. So again, you know, eating food is not just about what food you eat, but how you eat that. And this is you know, particular instruments for, you know, extracting bugs and eating bugs, thus, you know, making it into you know, a different practice, an intriguing process, and trying to, you know, bring insects up on our plates, daily plates. Now, I should, of course, I could talk more about insects. This is one of my favorite topics, because in scientific terms, this is a really hard one to do. Because once, if we would start to harvest insects on a massive scale, if we would start to grow those necessary kilos of protein that we need to sustain the population, in the northern hemisphere, that would be quite unsustainable. We have a large section of that in the book, not to mention all the ethics of growing insects. Now, you know, I'm sure you're all aware of the ethics of having live animals. You know, how you lock up animals and how that's not the best way to treat other living beings. But the same concerns, same ethical concerns, goes for insects, because they also have, you know, a sense of pain. They also tend to be prone to diseases, and they also need care. And these issues are quite important when it comes to you know, commercialized insect farms in Europe, for example. And it tends to make it quite unsustainable. Now, superfoods. Superfoods is a very cool thing and an age-old topic, because, you know, I guess we heard about ambrosia, you know, the Greek gods, the food of the Greek gods that we all sorry, dream about, you know, the food that gives us all eternal life. How do we get there? What superfoods do we have, and how can we get down to it? And Bert and Nita, this couple, they propose this near future algae symbiosis suit. A suit where you actually grow algae on your own body and feed off it at the same time. And now spirulina, this algae, is fantastic in the sense that it's high in protein and high in other nutritions, and basically a full-size meal. So it's a great concept and a great vision of how we could survive the future. Except, what's the likability of this? Anyway, that's fascinating, how to rear your own, you know, farm. Even if it's human deli or spirulina, how could we adapt to the environment in such a transparent way? Other dreams we had about superfoods are, of course, meal in the pill. And the meal in the pill, this sort of science fiction idea that one pill could sustain you for a day or a week, is with us. Some says since the Stone Age, when we discovered the wheat, because the wheat is also pill-like. It's a miracle food. Once we had wheat and the power of the wheat corn, in the way we had the pill, that still goes with us. The dream of the meal in a pill, which is fascinating. But in terms of nutrition and the need for enough proteins, that's way too little for your daily needs. Another superfood that we talk about is the cockroach milk. The milk of the cockroach is several times more potent than human milk or cow's milk. It would be fantastic to use that. It was proposed as the next superfood some years ago, except how do you milk cockroaches? They actually have milk. They actually give milk as crystals to the offspring. But to milk them, we would unfortunately have to crush them. So that's a rather hard process. But it's a superfood. Possibly a future superfood. You also talk about Soylent, the liquid superfood you can buy. But the big question in superfoods is what, talking about being in Romania, what's the silver bullet? Which, what food is, what will give us the clue? I mentioned, trees. What if we could eat trees, paper, plants, books, and acquire the full nutritional aspects? Well, we have one GMO crop, the golden rice. It's a rice that's high in A vitamin, and that promises to solve much of the food crisis in the world, or food issues, except it's GMO based. Therefore, as we know, GMO-based crops comes with lots of other ethical concerns. For example, who sells these GMO crops? What do they charge for these crops, etc. An interesting topic that we could go on talking about. But I will as I should go through my other slides, go into future junk food. Because I mean, junk is some of our favorite pastime, right? Whether it's popcorn, chocolate, or sweets. How do we, what junk do we consume, and what junk will we consume in the future? Now, junk is actually wrong. It's wrong to call junk, because junk is usually what we crave for. Back to the Stone Age man. Junk today, most junk that we crave for are perfected to the bliss point. They contain the right amount of salt, sugar, and fat. Those three combined, that's what we crave. That's super energy. Back in the Stone Age, we would crave for that combination, because that would make us run faster, hunt faster, do things faster, think better. We would be able to adapt to the environment better, as we always have. We always adapted. Our adaptation has happened through the way we, through our history, always have developed better foods. The junk food would be, until the modern age, be the perfect food for us to have. At least in an everyday hardship. Yet for our context, of course, we are now not longer living on the savannah. Therefore, that craving is redundant. Anyway, how to deal with future junk? And one proposition about this is Higreus and Levin's deep fried gadget. That proposed again, is it tasty? Maybe not. But what we do with all the junk around us, all the electronic junk, the tons and tons of electronic junk? Well, let's fry it and eat it. I don't think it will address your palate much, but still, as an idea, it explores complex social issues. Now, the bliss point today, as I mentioned, has come to rather absurd examples, and we cover some in the book. How pizzas now come with chocolate bars on top of it, or how you wrap sausages in chicken meat instead of bread, for example. So we have this sort of weird, we're still supersizing food until to an interesting level of non-sensibility. But I won't try and take you more into the world of fatness right now. Chapter 9, fantastic cuisine. And now, of course, we're ending towards the ending of the book. And again, the fantastic futures that lies ahead of us. Again, you can't escape the catastrophe. You have to surf it. So what do we do? Well, what we could do, for example, again back to Center for Genomic Gastronomy, we could use, the genetic technologies to bring back extinct species. I mean, would not a big steak of, Tyrannosaurus Rex tempt you? That's kind of the take on this one. How can we, bring back the passenger pigeon, or the ox, or the Pyrenean ibex? Again, what about the mammoth? The mammoth, as I mentioned, is one of the first examples of progress traps. which I mentioned in the beginning. Now this is going back to the beginning of my lecture and the Anthropocene. A progress trap is, well, not when we learn to hunt 2 mammoths instead of 1. 2 mammoths will give you twice as much as food. But the progress trap would be when we learn to hunt a flock, a herd of mammoths across the cliff, and you know, thereby eat a lot of food at once and afterwards starve. So the mammoth flock metaphor is a progress trap. How we jump on, you know, fantastic solutions at the time, but in time leads to disruption and fallout of food sources. But my favorite fantastic food is of course this, if you know E.T. What if we could eat alien species? I guess we actually would. This is quite healthy. It's made by 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐡. It's a wonderful project by this Swedish group. It's fantastic, and you know, it's ethically, you know, revolting in many ways, but it's vegetarian based and a very discursive piece. But yeah, what would we not eat if we had the chance? That's you know, an implicit question asked here. So now guys, I hope this was a little introduction to how the Anthropocene becomes our kitchen. It's about to become our kitchen. The catastrophe, as I said, whether you believe it or not, has happened. We live in this age, and now it's about, you know, imagining the future to come. But of course, yeah, what about cooking iPhones, grow human meat in vitro, or consuming fungi fed on plastic? Will it save us? No, but the book is not about the actual cooking. It's about the process of thinking behind this. Or coming up with new, inventive, strange, maybe dystopian, or bizarre ideas, but then to twist and turn our imagination into approaching the crisis to come. So yeah, a failure to solve a crisis is a failure of our imagination. So welcome to the future of your food. Thank you. And of course, I left time for some questions. You can ask about taste, for example. What tastes the best?
You mentioned that if we had some enzymes that can break down cellulose, I guess,
yeah,
we can be sustained by different. But my question is this sufficient just to have those enzymes?
Well, yeah, it's a good question, of course. Will we be able to be like cows? And if we were able to become like cows and eat plants, what would that happen with us? And so thank you for the question, because it also goes back to topic inside the book. What about devolution? Evolution and devolution. We have evolved into, you know, a thinking species, you know, the dominant species on Earth, thanks to, you know, gradual, you know, food gives energy, gives the possibility for growth, etc. So you have sort of spiral upwards in evolving terms of our species. What would happen if we started to eat plants only? There's strong suggestions that which we, you know, cover in the book and references to how that could also cause devolution of the human species, probably into, you know, a different species again. So your question has several dimensions. The likelihood for us to introduce enzymes is to a certain degree there, but it's ethically, you know, questionable, of course. No one dares to go across that border, you know. But possibly we could I mean, we could try, I guess. There's no current research in that direction. So it's speculative, you know. It's a speculative and discursive because it uncovers, you know, the enormous amounts of food around us. or the energy stored in our environment that could, be consumed. Was that an answer, or not really?
It's a direction,
In
direction but I'm thinking about these enzymes or the matter, the cellulose matter. Does it have the nutritional values, or maybe we should think about a system or more types of enzymes or some cells that carry the matter that is divided by these enzymes towards where we need it in our body.
Yeah, we don't have seven stomachs like the cow, right? So it's a complex question, how to break those down in necessary nutritions. But I mean, yeah, you have animals that can do it. So we, I mean, in that sense, in a far future scenario, the human cow is with the given technologies that we have, not an impossible scenario. And that's the provocation, right? Should we go there? Could we go there? And what does it take to go there? And an extreme catastrophe might actually trigger that jump into such a dystopian thinking or dystopian scenario.
Yeah. Could it be an idea here to say that art now comes first and breaks the taboos, and then science comes afterwards and actually realizes it?
Yeah, that could be one. At the same time, these things are, they hover between art and science, right? Some of these projects are based on scientific experiments. So you have this sort of back and forth as well, But I think the concept, how do we, well, it's a cliche, you have to think big to act big. In the art, you have to have sometimes, these strange, weird, bizarre ideas that push you forward. Into unknown terrain, and that's the beauty of arts. That's the beauty of that as I said, transgression and transgressive transformation. We have in phenomenological terms, as Heidegger talks about that, we have our understanding of the world. We go through the world with our acquired schooling and understanding. Yet, at some points, we need to fall flatten our faces to get this sort of new perspective on the world, and that's what I call like a breakdown scenario. If something breaks down, if your hammer breaks down in his scenario, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? But once the hammer breaks down, what happens with the nails or your ability? So the breakdown of the ordinary functionalities trigger this reorientation, and that's the transgressive, transition that art can bring about.
Just a comment in the movie Soylent Green.
Yes.
50 years ago, there's something with it.
It's also in the book, yeah. And the Soylent company has taken that up, yeah. And for you, those of you who don't know it, it's about a future scenario where people are fed. In a dystopian context, fed food and the green food, and gradually they uncover that it's actually human remains. Very interesting and a classic in that sense. Kristin, would you?
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the process. You said you didn't want to talk about it, but I keep thinking it's very thought-provoking, and you managed to get this out on MIT Press, and you said you had peer reviewers going through it, and I just wondered, who are the peer reviewers then? Do you manage to combine people from different fields, or would they be artist curators, or
No.
how was it kind of received as a product for a publishing house?
I don't know who they were. I just know they were from hard science. So we had interesting comments from them because they were hard scientists. And this book is, between science and art, science, back and forth. So the comments, they misunderstood quite a bit of things. They took the arts for science. And back to your question, it's not always, art and science can, spill over in each other or inspire each other. But you can't always take an artistic statement for hard facts, right? So we had some interesting comments. But the book got through because it's fact-written. Half the book is references and pinpoints to other books and the projects. So it's written again how to foresee a future through art and food in a scientific manner, or scientifically approved from MIT Press. Yeah.
Yeah. So in a way, it's a kind of a tool that shows this back and forth and connections.
Yeah, it was.
Or a mirror or something.
Although the comments we got were not helpful at all. We didn't get any because they understood it literally in many ways. The conceptual phase they didn't take as concept. They thought, no, that's revolting to have such a statement or proposition. And they didn't see the context of discursive and investigative designs. So yeah.
Did you have also an exhibition or festival associated with the book, or just the book, and you curated some existing projects?
Interesting question. Yeah, well, both me and Sanne have done several food projects, and this summer we actually did a food called Next Generation Festival, where we applied some of the, not projects of the book, but the thinking, on a festival for children in Latvia, where we worked with 5 artists to make weird foods, speculative food projects, food with space scientists. Also with this genomic gastronomy, we're also there, and also a project with which is quite interesting, and I haven't talked much about that, but invasive species, right? Because invasive species is a super cool topic of edible mass. Because we are, like in Norway now, we are encouraged to eat invasive species extinct, right? So it's a twist on ethics again. But yeah, we follow several of these projects and hope we will come out with the book number 2. But that might take a couple of years. Yeah. If you have any tips of food festivals, we're happy to.
Yeah, you mentioned we developing into a new species as time goes on. Certainly we will do that. I was just sitting here thinking, perhaps H.R. Giger, this Swiss artist, was right in the way we are developing sort of a hybrid between technology and biology.
Yeah, it's a hybrid species.
Have there been any speculations on which way it's going? I've heard, for example, that what's it called? Autism is actually going to be good. I mean,
Is what?
Like autism.
Yeah.
Asperger,
Well, that's an interesting question, but and I can only speculate as well about that one. How stable is biology, and how again, as I said, junk food. How is junk food affecting us? I mean, I think we don't know at the beginning of this process, And there's, well, I didn't mention one. There's lots of things in the book. I didn't mention orthorexia nervosa, which is back to the. It's a disease. Orthorexia is this unhealthy obsession with eating healthy. And we have lots of obsessions in our world. So back to developing your body. What kind of diet are you having? But orthorexia nervosa is not like bulimia or anorexia, but it's again, it can cause disturbances or special developments in your body. And this is a brand new term for brand new, well, disorder, you could say. an unhealthy obsession with eating healthy. So yeah, the long-term consequences I cannot guarantee, but as a species we're here, so it has food does play a role. So I don't know what you want to serve now, Mirella, but do you want to serve something special now, or?
Yeah, something more tears in a bottle, which we usually call water.
But again, as a question, many of these projects might seem bizarre, but once you, for us to deal with this topic, it's about that shift to see the weirdness of stuff as something normal and natural, and I think that's so try to see beyond the surface and more into depth of what it actually means in terms of substance. Anyway, this is, I think, a fantastic meal of the fantastic future. So whether we go there or into the Blade Runner, let's see. I guess, yeah, it's 4 past, so I will leave you now with fresh air, and thank you for listening. I forgot to say that if you want to buy the book, as an author, I got 5 copies, so you have to buy it online. That's all I had. One of my 4 copies. You have to do it online, fortunately, because I don't have any copies myself.